my cameraman in Madagascar got a stick like engorged into his leg, like in the middle of nowhere. So we had to kind of make decisions, or do we pull it out? Do we, so we did all this stuff on camera. And Guyana was for real. Like from the get-go, I knew we were dealing with a really shady dude, and we got in the middle of the jungle, and he kind of renegotiated the deal over and over and over until all the cash was gone.
It's going to be a really neat behind the scenes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird.
Because something always magical happens.
Wait, what? Did you just make that up? Hey, it's Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert. Listen each week as I talk with someone new. The topics are as ADD as I am, but they'll inspire you to stay curious and grow. Big thanks to our location sponsor, the UWF Historical Trust.
Imagine yourself lost in Guyana. Now, swimming with sharks. Now, giving a tour of New Orleans. Now, a cameraman, a drone pilot, a travel host show, a writer, director, editor. Congratulations, you've just lived part of my next guest's life. Shane Reynolds has worked with Travel Channel, National Geographic, Discovery Channel, and the BBC. He's the owner of the mobile TV production company Color Earth and is a traveling one-man band. Today, we're going to get behind the curtain and look at the shows that let us mind travel and Shano himself. Juggler, literally and figuratively. Professional adventurer, Shane Reynolds.
What's up?
What's up? Welcome.
Oh,
welcome
good
out
to
of
be
quarantine.
Here. Yeah, good to be here. It's so fun not just sitting around watching my mullet grow.
So you wear so many hats. When I was like researching this for this podcast, it was like such a long list. I had to pick just a few for your intro.
Yeah.
Of all the hats you wear, and I keep finding out that you wear more, which hat was the first hat?
The first hat was actually music. I actually was recording and writing and recording music a lot, and played in a few bands through college. I wanted to take music really seriously, and when I got to when I realized like majoring in music would ruin my love for music, I started looking in other directions, and I just found that video is very similar to that in terms of I loved being in the recording studio. I could spend 15 hours just mixing music, so it was the same kind of deal, going out and shooting videos and coming in and putting that stuff together, just a visual version. So
yeah, that's interesting because what you just described musically is being the talent and being the production person,
right?
And that's what
right.
you do now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Who would have thought?
I still to this day I don't know if it's just because I'm a control freak or I'm just easily bored or I didn't have the talent around me to do it. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I've come across great talent along the way. And I've definitely gotten to this point where, I'm able to delegate more these days because I'm getting older and, I don't want to be a one-man band. But, growing up and into this industry, it was always kind of a kiss of death because it just, when I moved to Nashville to push music, I started getting into video and everyone was like, so what do you want to do here at this production company? And it's like, well, I want to edit and I want to shoot and I want to do and they're like, well, you can't do all those things, like you got to pick one and specialize in it. Otherwise people think you suck at all of it, so, but I like doing all of it, and I think I'm okay at it, and I look back now and I was terrible. And, thankfully I look back at it that way because I think if you don't look back at your early stuff and think it sucks, then you haven't grown.
Then you probably still suck.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We should all look back at our past selves and be embarrassed. Yeah. That's like actually some sort of life goal.
Right.
That's funny that you mentioned about the people thought that you were maybe sucky at all those things. And well, what do you want to do? Because when I was thinking about how does Shane get these, professional relationships with all these networks and stuff, which thing do you pitch?
That's been kind of the hard part too. Nowadays I have, I think 5 or 6 different demo reels that I've just I spent many years trying to make a demo reel that kind of explained everything, but it just never did.
Yeah.
So I just got to this point where like, okay, I'm just going to make a drone reel. I'm going to make an underwater reel. I'm going to make a DP reel. I'm going to make a host reel. You know, and then whenever people are asking, you know, do you do this? So yeah, here, you know, so maybe it looks a little more like I'm focused in on that, rather than all over the place.
Yeah,
so.
That's kind of like a comp card for modeling.
Yeah.
You know, like if I'm submitting for something, then I might change out the pictures to be more, you know, commercial mom type role. If they want like sporty spice, then I put like my sports bra on and my leggings and look super sporty. That'll be your next reel.
Yeah, right.
Sporty spice Shane.
I definitely have had some Sporty Spice reels in the past. So.
Okay, well, we'll make sure to link those in the show notes.
I don't know if you want to look at those.
So what was your first big break when it came to the production or on-screen talent?
You know what? I was in Nashville. I moved there in '98, and you know, I wouldn't call it my big break, but it was, you know, getting paid to do this kind of thing. You know, I worked at a little production company called CJM Productions, and they hired me as a production assistant. And within a year or two, I was shooting their, you know, I was their main director. I was set designing for them. I was doing all their editing. I was hosting their music video show. I was doing all these things and still getting paid as a production assistant. But it was a really great experience while it lasted, because it got me into working with all kinds. I mean, we worked with everybody in Nashville, and you know, got to do cool things like, you know, go to Stingray City with Blake Shelton, or, you know, scuba diving with Travis Tritt, and just random things, you know, like, and but it was always just kind of a grind, you know. So from '98, I guess I started professionally, and then I didn't get like what you'd call the big break until probably 2006, when Travel Channel kind of called and said, we want to do this one-man band show. And it was a primetime thing, and it was just a handful of us that are just hosting, shooting, editing our own shows for this Travel Channel show. So, you know, it didn't become a career until then. It was work until then.
Yeah.
You know, so, and since then it's just been, you know, once you get your foot in the door, which is the hardest part, you know, then if you're good at what you do, then, you know, all these executives tend to get turned over every couple of years, and they all branch out to different places like BBC or to PBS or, you know, to Nat Geo. So that's where it leads to all these other opportunities.
Okay, that makes so much sense, because I was wondering how you went from one to the other. Like, I just imagined you on your computer, like writing emails or something, but it's not that way.
No, it's recognizing opportunity. I almost didn't even submit to Travel Channel when it happened, because a friend of the family just sent me an email. It was like they're taking auditions online for this backpacker show where these kids go out for $50 a day. And I was 30 years old at the time, and I'm like, I'm too old for this. So I threw it in the trash, and like 20 minutes later, I was like, you know, at least someone at Travel Channel will be looking at my stuff. So I'm just going to submit anyway. So I pulled it out of the trash and did it. And I made it to the final round of interviews for that show, didn't get it. And I drove all the way to Miami for that final interview, and nothing. And they're like, well, you didn't get it. And I'm like, what an enormous waste of time. And like 2 days later, another exec said, we didn't want you for that show, but we want you to do this other one. So, you know, like, I could do a show for where I'm doing everything and not working on $50 a day. That'd be great.
Yeah. And what show was that?
That show was called 5 Takes.
5 Takes.
So it was these 5 backpackers with $50 a day running around with each other. It was like a reality travel show.
And the show that you actually got booked for
was Not Your Average Travel Guide.
Okay, I saw on the Travel Channel website. So that's where you got to do tours all over the place. Yeah. And then when did Shane Untamed come into the picture?
We got that in 2010. We did that from 2010 through 2011. And that was based on a exec that I got to know real well at Travel Channel, who moved over to Nat Geo, and you know, they kind of you know, this was Bill Margol, who's now at PBS. He's just a great guy, and he you know, gave me this false sense of security in the industry, because it was, when I got done with that, he pretty much brought me over there and it was like, hey, they flew me up and we want you to pitch a show. And I kind of hardly knew the process of really pitching. So I just kind of sat down and I had a basic idea of what I wanted to do, and I just let them roll with it and let them kind of pitch the show for me. I was like, I want to go to weird places and weird animals, that kind of thing. They're like, right. And you're going to do this and this with it too. And I was like, exactly. That's what I want to do. And like, I love it. Let's go. Let's make this show. And so that was an incredible experience, but it also led me to believe, this getting shows is just so easy, and I've since learned that, the grind's a lot harder than that.
Yeah.
But
how much of that was real? Because I watched clips on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty searchable. And it was like you with a self-facing camera trucking through the jungle with your camera crew. You don't know where they're at.
Right.
And you're fighting off mosquitoes. How much of that is like, oh, guys, that was good, do it again? And how much of it is like really recorded live as it happens?
I think in most cases, this was all like one-man band kind of stuff, right? But it's grown exponentially since Not Your Average Travel Guide. So the Shane and Tame show, it was still billed as a one-man band show, but it was, I still had a shooter. I had, a little bit of a support group there as far as a crew goes. And so we were still streamlining everything to a point in which, we definitely had to go in with an idea of what we wanted. We needed to kind of produce a little bit, we just kind of hit action and let it happen.
Right.
So in that sense, it was real. And then we'd go back and see how it all unfolded, and then say, okay, now we got to fill in the blanks and tell that story.
Right.
So it was kind of like a reality show, but when we're done, we got to embellish it to make it look really good.
Or enhanced reality.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Was there any like crazy situations with that? Because it did look very out there in the middle of nowhere.
It just depended. Like, the Alaska show pretty much went without a hitch. Everglades went without a hitch, but we did stuff like, my cameraman in Madagascar got a stick like engorged into his leg, like in the middle of nowhere. So we had to kind of make decisions, or do we pull it out? Do we, so we did all this stuff on camera. And Guyana was for real. Like from the get-go, I knew we were dealing with a really shady dude, and we got in the middle of the jungle and he kind of renegotiated the deal over and over and over until all the cash was gone, regardless of having double what he said it was going to cost, and all the porters leaving in the middle of the night, basically, and we're just kind of making our way out with the gear, and made a show out of that instead of the show we were trying to make. So there was a lot of reactionary production. So in that sense, it was very real as well. I'd say the Guyana show was more real than any of them, because we were dealing with a lot of bullshit.
That's crazy. That would be really scary.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm cut out for that.
It was one of, I think I really like watching shows like Naked and Afraid and things like that these days, because I'm just like, oh man, I kind of know how that feels, and it's one of those where I look back and go, I'm really glad that happened, because it's that experience in your life, like, well, if I can handle that, then this is no big deal.
And you have proof. So no one can say, oh man, you were exaggerating. You'd be like, actually, if you look at episode 2, you'll see that I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just watched Primal Survivor we got Disney Plus, and so the Discovery Channel, I think, is on there, or Nat Geo or something like that. But I'm also a big fan of Josh Gates' Expedition Unknown.
Yeah.
How do other people does everyone get a job like that just kind of on accident, or kind of how you did? I
think the way I did it, I'm not sure how. I got to dive with Josh and shoot with him in Aruba one time, but I never got a chance to really dig into his process. But I think in most cases, people that end up doing this kind of thing are people that aren't afraid to try to craft their career into their lifestyle. So if this is something that they enjoy doing, they just kind of keep cracking at it and find ways to stay content until, something happens. So like me, when I was just trying to make ends meet, for almost 10 years, it was, when I left Nashville, I moved back in with my mom. You know what I mean? Because I was like, I just want to not, and it was my choice. I wanted to just save every penny I had and buy more gear, build a production company, and get to a point. Because I saw something that I was like, I think I can make something happen here. And we ended up doing a local TV show called Destination Soundcheck, because they had this free, we have this lease access channel. We have no content. And I was already shooting a lot of travel stuff. And I'm like, well, I'll just put together a formatted show out of all this goofy shit that I've shot. and all the late night drunks loved that show, and it was that demo that I made for that show that I sent in to Travel Channel, that they were like, oh, let's do this. So it's just a matter of doing what you love and keep doing it. Once you get to a point where you're like, oh, this isn't working, I give up, then, that's the end of the road. So
I like how you worded it, that you integrate your lifestyle into your career and they kind of bleed into each other. I don't know if everybody is cut out for that. Some people really like that hard line between work and home, as proven now with people having to work from home and really not liking it. Some people do, but
there's the other side of the coin to that too. Because I tell people, I look at people that have that 9-to-5 job, and even though that's not something that I'm cut out for by any means, I look at them with a little bit of envy that they can clock out and go home and just, that's it. They can clock out, and I can't ever clock out. And that's why, the only things I have in my life is like surfing and snowboarding and scuba diving. I think those three things are the things I can do where my brain turns off and I can just focus on what's in front of me. And so that's why I have to do that stuff, or else I'll just go crazy.
Yep, I am the exact same way. That's why when people are like, oh, one day we'll have like our watches will be able to communicate on the beach, and then like surf coaches. And I do see the advantage for like surf coaches and stuff, but I'm like, for me, part of it is just not being connected and not counting anything, not tracking anything, not, if I can, not being aware of time, just being on my board in the water. So I feel you. You mentioned diving earlier, and you got to dive with Jacques Cousteau's grandson, Philippe, and his wife. Tell me about that.
That was one of the coolest gigs I've ever had, because it was one where it was for Caribbean Pirate Treasure on Travel Channel. We did 2 seasons of that. And, the crew that they put together, it was headed up by Bob Asher over at Critical Media. And the dude is just a nonstop character. And it just became a family really quick, because we all just clicked. And that's often rare too. A lot of times big crews just kind of get the job done, and, you never talk to them again. But
hey everyone, just a quick interruption to show gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals. The UWF Historical Trust. We shoot the show in the Museum of Commerce and the T.T. Wentworth Museum. And not only is this an amazing step back into the 18 and 1900s, but it's an event space too. How cool is that? You can see everything at historicpensacola.org. If you want to tour one of the 12 museums, and yes, Pensacola has 12 museums, and you get your tickets in person, show the ticket agent one of my emails and you'll get $2 off an adult ticket. You can get emails by texting REAL to 66866. So I don't have kids, but I also want to tell you about It's Your Magazine. They're a national family-centered publishing company with free parent magazines. They have parenting advice, events, and inspiration. I'm actually in a networking group with the publisher, and this guy is all about family. You can view a free magazine in cities in Texas, Oregon, Washington, and Florida by checking them out at itsyourmagazine.com. And INSEC. So I've always felt iffy about pesticides. Then the mosquitoes got so bad, I would get covered in them from walking from my house to the car. I called INSEC, and to say I've been impressed is an understatement. When the treatment wasn't quite doing it, the owner actually came to my house. He found the breeding sites, identified the species of mosquito, and adjusted my treatment to that species. That's when I found out he's also a beekeeper, and pollinator issues are always top of mind. So if you're in the Florida Panhandle or Gulf Coast of Alabama, give him a call, ensec.net. And Dexafit Pensacola. So new thought, the scale is just your relationship with gravity. Now when I get on my scale and me no likey, I say, you don't know me. What does know me is the 3D body comp scan. I can see what I'm made of and what's right for my body. Plus, when you get a Dexafit scan, you also get a consultation, because what good is data if you don't know what to do with it? After you know, you can make your fitness plan smart, like Expert Level 5000. Also, look this up on YouTube. It's pretty awesome. Dexafit.com. Now back to the show.
You know, and Philippe and Ashlyn were just amazingly genuine people, which was nice. You know, I've worked with talent that I didn't walk away thinking the best of in the past, and it was also a gig where I wasn't one man banding anything. I was specialized. I was shooting B cam. I was shooting stock footage. You know, the beauty shots and establishing shots, and then cross shooting for different scenes, and then doing all the underwater stuff. So, and then second season, I was doing more of the drone stuff and things like that. So I actually had the best gig on the show aside from hosting it, you know, because when the guys were doing the meat of the story, like, we're going to cross shoot them talking to this, Shane, why don't you just go explore the old town and get some establishing shots? And then when we're out diving looking for treasure, you know, the whole crew is sitting getting seasick on the boat, and me and Ashlyn and Philippe are down, you know, looking for treasure.
Oh, that's amazing. And you found some.
Yeah, I even found some while I was shooting.
Really?
You know, I'd just look down and, like, you know, kind of dig around, and, you know, I found a bottle from like the 1700s, and then a full gin bottle from like the 1800s that was perfectly intact. And Ashlyn found a copper ingot, and we genuinely just, like, I just had the camera on her when we just found this stuff sitting there. So it was a really, really cool experience. It was a great gig.
And that was, where was that again?
Where? Mm-hmm. We were all over the Caribbean. We were all over, we went to Ecuador, Peru, Belize, and all over the Caribbean.
So was all that treasure at a World Heritage Site?
Where did we find treasure? We found treasure in Antigua. We found treasure in St. Thomas.
So no.
Probably some of the best treasure we found was in the harbor at where the cruise ships come in and out in St. Thomas.
Yeah, because the ships, they turn up the soil or the sand. And
exactly.
So you got to keep those things?
No.
Of course
no,
not.
I didn't keep any of it. Absolutely not.
No, that would not be ethical.
I didn't do any of that.
Nope. Well, Elsian, your daughter, is quite the rising star. If she became some on-air talent, what mistakes would you want her to avoid?
Ooh, there's a good question. Man, what would I want her to avoid? She's already talking about every time I put the camera on her, she's already saying, make sure to subscribe. You know, hit the bell button. She's kind of born into this, and I think mostly my fear for her is just thinking that her life is a reality show ultimately, and just being and not gaining a filter to what she's going to put out there. Because a lot of that stuff, you make one wrong move. I still look back at my history and think, without social media and all these things. If we make a mistake in our life before the time we're 14, then we could be known for that for the rest of our lives. And nowadays, everything we do is under a microscope. So I don't know how kids don't get to a point where they're like, I don't even think you can move and start over anymore because it all still exists. So I don't know. I just want her to be smart about what, when the camera comes on, you got to be smart.
Yes. And there's a difference between reality,
right,
when no one's watching and when the camera is rolling.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's important to be, genuine in both circumstances, but to be grounded in the reality part. Yeah. That's tricky parenting area there for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, I know that the tagline of the show is stay curious and grow. Yeah. And part of why I love to have you on the show was because your really are like a paid adventurer. So, and your adventure isn't just in the obvious, like I'm in the rainforest, can't find my cameraman, but it's also in the, okay, I'm going to pivot, COVID-19 hit, you're like, all right, now I'm going to redo my reel for the seventh time. And I'm going to present myself in this way. So the flexibility and the adaptability, I think, is an essential part of adventure.
Yeah.
They're one and the same. So if you were going to give people advice, people that do work a 9-to-5 job, or even people that are, in the acting camera world, what advice would you give them to be more adventurous and have that habit of being adventurous? I
think being adventurous is a very subjective term to everybody. What I find adventurous, a lot of people might find ridiculous. So, if I could relate it to everybody, I guess I would just say that, being adventurous is not being afraid to take risks and to do things that make you feel more alive or make you feel scared, which makes you feel more alive. And I think, the times that we're facing right now is a really great example of, nothing is secure, nothing is safe. I took the unsafe route, working for myself and chasing my dreams. And, while other people are like, I like a steady paycheck. And now, as I've said my whole life, I don't think there is such a thing as a steady paycheck. And we know now that that's very, very true. So, I think a lot of people can maybe reassess where they're at in their life right now and use this downtime to say, you know what, it wasn't worth doing this thing that I don't want to be doing. It was probably a better idea to take that risk, and it's not too late to do that. So I just think it's easy for me to say that because me working a 9-to-5 doing something I don't like, I develop health problems. So I get to it, like anxiety overtakes. So so I have to do that. I don't really have a choice in it. But people that have a choice in it, I still would say take the harder route. Yeah.
Or at least take a hard look at it now that we have a moment of pause, kind of.
Right.
To reevaluate.
Yeah.
You, real quickly, because I know we're running out of time, but you had a really cool long form documentary of our Emerald Coast. Mm-hmm. Can you share about that? And is there any update on how we can watch it?
Yeah, that was supposed to premiere April 4th and 5th. Mm-hmm. And of course that didn't happen because we were doing it at Suds and Cinema, a small local historical theater. And it's been moved to mid-May, which is probably going to get moved again. It's just a historical project on the Emerald Coast that focuses mainly on Fort Walton, Okaloosa Island, Eglin, and Destin. And we've been working on it for like almost a decade, trying to get it off my back. And now that we're finally done with it, I can't get it released. Yeah. So, hopefully have an update on when we're going to premiere it. And ultimately it will be on my Vimeo channel for rent or download. So we're hoping to premiere it before we do that.
Yeah.
So
and where can people keep up with your creative productions?
Everything is, all my social media is on my website at colorearth.tv. And, but on-screen stuff typically is going to be on my YouTube channel, Shano Goes. And Instagram is more of my daily updates on what we're doing. And that's at Color Earth Pro. And, and there's still a lot of stuff on travelchannel.com. So there, we did a few different series, like Reel is a really good one with Kinga Phillips. I produced and edited and shot that. And Top 10 Locals List was a really fun show that I did for them. And, so there's a lot of stuff online to kind of fill the void right now.
So, or binge, depends how you see it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. If you are listening or watching to this and loved it, make sure you share it with a friend. And all of the links that he talked about, the YouTube, Instagram, the long form documentary, those will all be clickable links in my show notes, which you can get via email. Just text REAL, REAL, to 66866. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's a wrap.
Had a great time.
Are you still listening? Just kidding, of course you are. Since you're here, here's some ways you can support the show. stalk me on social media, leave a review, share an episode with a friend, or check out my Teespring page for delightfully sarcastic apparel. Links are in the episode description.